be a longer pause.
There are no people. There are no people in the future. No people at all. There are no people in the future. Where did all my people go? There are no people in the future. Let me try my people call. Where are all my people? Where are all my people? I guess I'll fly away now.
Everybody, how's it going? How is it going? Welcome. It is Wednesday, May 18th, 2022. Welcome to the Wednesday show with Cyril Mychalejko. Yes, we are live streaming today, so you can hop on in the chat, as I see a couple people already have. Fantastic. Cyril, of course, is a progressive columnist for the Bucks County Courier-Times and the Intelligencer, and the editor-in-chief of the kind of skyrocketing awesome The Bucks County Beacon. This show joins, of course, Out to Coop Live, our Monday evening interview show, and our Friday Politics Roundup, where we break down the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. You can get all our shows by subscribing to our podcast on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. You also should sign up for Cyril's newsletter on Substack. That's cyrilmychalejko.substack.com. You can also help support this show by becoming a patron for as little as $5 a month. You go head on over to patreon.com/rcpress. Your support helps make today's show possible, of course. You can also help us out right now by heading over to our YouTube channel if you're not there already. Smash that subscribe button, like the stream for the show, and hit that notification bell so you know every time that we go live. A special shout out goes to Jonathan Mann, who wrote our intro song, There Are No People in the Future. Check out all his great stuff on his YouTube page and follow him on Twitter at SongADayman. That's at SongADayman on Twitter. A couple show notes. This week's Friday Politics Roundup is actually going to be Thursday, and that is going to be tomorrow at 11 a.m. instead of Friday at 11 a.m. My daughter's got some school stuff that I'm going to be there for. So Amy Connect joins me tomorrow to round up these past insane couple 2 weeks, take a look at the PA primaries, and think about where we can go from there. This coming Monday, May 23rd, I'm joined by Sarah Aniano. She is a researcher who's basically looking into social media misinformation and the rhetoric of the far right. This work has garnered her as nationwide media attention for her amazing work on kind of uncovering and reporting on the right while a graduate student. And then, of course, on Monday, May 30th, Kirsten Zoffel is going to be back on the show to pull the moderate mask off Representative Brian Fitzpatrick's record. Yep, Kirsten is the PA Indivisible Legislative Chair and editor of the PA Member of Congress Tracking Report. Always a good show talking to Kirsten, and she will be there on Monday, May 30th. But look, on this week's show, Cyril and I are getting together, doing a little election reflection, if you will. Taking a look at the PA primaries that just took place yesterday and check in a little bit about what's happening over at the Bucks County Beacon. Welcome to the show, Cyril.
Hey, good to be back, Kevin.
Hey, man, so it's a big week, so let's just kind of get right into it. One, I definitely want to take a look or get your take on what's going on, happened with the PA primaries yesterday. What do you think this kind of like focuses on kind of moving forward? And then before I let you go, we'll check in to see what's happening over at the Beacon. Just been some great work going on there, too, so... So let's jump right in. So yesterday, PA primaries, we're starting to see the results. Some things are clear. Some races are still kind of, a little close. They're waiting to call them yet. So what are some of the things that you're paying attention to, taking a looking at? The looking at.
Well, let's start with the governor's race.
Yeah, let's do
right?
it.
So, I think how that played out was how it was expected. Obviously Josh Shapiro was going to be the nominee. He ran unopposed. And as far as Mastriano, I think people that doubted him underestimated the GOP base that he commands. And I think that Democrats might be a little, this might be harsh, but might be a little delusional if they think that Josh Shapiro is going to run away with the governor's race, right? We don't live in the same country we did 20 years ago. The Republican Party isn't the same party it was 20 years ago. Doug Mastriano is not an outlier of the Republican Party. He is the Republican Party, right? Especially in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And he's part of Trump's Republican Party, which is why Trump endorsed him. Now, if we're looking at this through the Bucks County lens, let's just say that Central Bucks School District is a bellwether for the state at large, right? I don't think that would be a stretch.
No, I think that's, yeah.
Yeah, and so, I don't think like people, look at like Doylestown, like Buckingham Township, like Warrington and Warwick, as some kind of like radical hotbed of like, Christian nationalism and extremism. But if you look what's happening in the school district, right, it suggests otherwise. Like here we have a school district where sexual education is too controversial to teach in person to a classroom full of students, right? So instead of teaching them in person about human growth and development, now their parents are being sent online modules for them to go over, or for them to do
choose,
what they're—
so they can choose.
Yeah, choose to or not, right? And then here in Central Bucks School District, you have a draft library policy overhaul that the American Library Association, the Education Law Center, the Pennsylvania School Librarians Association are all opposed to, which they say is unconstitutional, amounts to censorship, and is heartbreaking. And it was modeled off of a Texas policy as well. And then here in Central Bucks School District, which is supposed to be moderate, you have 3 Republican candidates who essentially embraced an endorsement by the local 3% militia. None of them rejected it. And then one of these candidates, all of them are on the school board, one who said while she was running at a school board meeting, right now as we speak, there are demonic adults recruiting, brainwashing, and participating in unconscionable behavior with children. And every one of you know it. That's quote, word for word from her. And then here in Doylestown, right, we have an insurrectionist, right, who was just elected to the GOP as a GOP committee woman for Doylestown Borough. Someone who recorded herself in the Capitol while this rioting was going on, saying we were looking for Nancy to shoot her in the friggin' brain,
right, but
we didn't find her. So, to think that the Democratic Party is going to run away with this and that the Republican Party, even in like quote unquote moderate suburban collar counties like Philadelphia, aren't going to turn out, they're making a huge mistake.
I agree 100%. 100%. And I think that, this has made me nervous to see, Josh Shapiro's campaign, right, basically coming out and basically rerunning the same kind of, too smart by half campaign with Mastriano, basically putting out all of Mastriano's talking points as if like the GOP base is going to be like floored by that. Where, the GOP base is motivated by those things. So basically, this whole idea that, okay, we're going to show how extreme this person is, and then people are going to realize, and therefore they're going to vote Democrats, especially those on the fence Republicans, right? I mean, that's a playbook that has proven to not work. Right. And to respond to what we're seeing, you got the, we're heading into a full-on assault on like women's like full citizenship in the United States, right? And this kind of like racist, almost like overtly racist campaigning right? And we're seeing the overtaking of conspiracy theorists of whether local school boards or committee members or potentially the governor's office in Pennsylvania. And I don't think just playing nice and kind of saying nice things or kind of pointing out the bad things the other person is doing is going to do it. It makes me very concerned that Shapiro, who for a while looked like he was going to be a fighter, seems to be being infected by the same kind of Democratic Party consultant kind of nonsense that scares the crap out of me when thinking about. I think you're underestimating the motivation behind of voters behind Mastriano's campaign.
No, absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head with like the whole like playing nice thing, right? Like people need to recognize like this is a fight, right? And like polite, mild-mannered, patient people with a blind faith in reason and common sense never changed history, right? Especially in this age of unreason that we're living in now. So I think not only people need to be energized, like within like the Democratic Party, but also like outside of the Democratic Party, with continuing to build like local movements and continuing to show up, to the things that maybe might not be directly related to the election, but are like school board meetings, like protecting public libraries, like rallying for abortion rights and abortion justice. Election days are important, but it's like the days in between when you're voting, which are even more important.
Yeah, 100%. One other thing about the governor's race too, as well, as looking at organizing and what we should be kind of like pushing back against overtly is like, look, Mastriano, yes, Mastriano got 39%. Maybe at the end of the day, we'll see more 40% of the vote. So he's clearly won the Democrat or the Republican primary for governor. But let's remember the next person in line there, right? One of the next people in line, it's almost tied. Lou Barletta, right, is like was at 19% there, which basically that's over 50% of the Republicans who came out to vote. And Lou Barletta, let's remember, got his fame by being kind of an anti-immigrant racist when he was mayor kind of like up in northern Pennsylvania. Right. So that tells you again about where that base is at. And then we have to do the organizing on the ground all summer long.
No, absolutely. I mean, actually, from what I'm seeing, like between Mastriano and Barletta, it's like 64% of the vote. And like you said, like Barletta is like a xenophobe and extremist, right? Like he gave an interview with and this is something like CNN reported a few years back and reminded people of, is that he gave an interview with a fringe publication that promotes Holocaust denial, right? He appeared on a panel on immigration hosted by the Youth for Western Civilization. This was back, I think, in like 2011. A now shuttered group which like focused on the issues of Western history, identity, high culture, and pride, as well as opposition to multiculturalism, quote unquote racial preference,
right,
mass immigration. And so, I mean, this was like the Proud Boys before the Proud Boys, right, with Western chauvinism. The Republican Party, the Pennsylvania Republican Party, it is the party of Doug Mastriano. It is the party of Lou Barletta. It is the party of Barnett and the party of Oz and the party of Brian Fitzpatrick. And Brian Fitzpatrick is part of this radical right-wing group.
100%. 100%. So, well, good thing at least when it comes to the race for the Senate, things were different, right? Not so much.
Yeah, I'm excited about John Fetterman.
Yeah.
Right. And I did like Malcolm Kenyatta as well, and I think he has a great future ahead of him. And he gave a great quote to like Meet the Press. After it became clear that he wasn't going to win, he said, I quote, I'm going to be out there doing everything we can to make sure we preserve democracy and don't allow it to die on our watch.
Yep.
Allowing any one of these Republicans to become PA senator will be the canary in the coal mine for democracy dying on our watch. And he's absolutely right. And that goes across the board, across not just for the Senate race, but the governor's race, US Rep and PA1, etc.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, the other thing that I think is really encouraging coming out of that election. One, I agree with 100% with what you said about Malcolm's quote. His campaign has been great, and he's been showing up across the state. And I said this on the show on Monday too. I look at it like this. I mean, you're talking. I think this round, Malcolm Kenyatta was able to kind of start, giving himself a kind of statewide and kind of national kind of presence. And I think that I just hope that he's going to continue to come back and run, because I think that he's got a huge future kind of going forward. And he's like an amazing candidate. What he's done at the State House has been phenomenal. I wish there had been more wind behind that guy's sails. But having said that, Fetterman trounced Connor Lamb. And Connor Lamb is that representative of the dying breed, hopefully, of the kind of right-wing Democrats and the corporate Democrats that were trying to basically run from an old playbook. Basically saying, we just got to be moderated and we got to think carefully. Nope. You got Fetterman that came out and kind of ran an unabashedly kind of like, people's campaign, rough talking. No, we're going to be progressive on certain issues. And again, we could talk about Fetterman. We will as we get closer to the actual to the fall elections. But I mean, the fact that he put Connor Lamb's campaign to rest, I think, is a really positive. A positive indicator of where we're going politically, at least when it comes in terms of Democratic Party politics here in the state.
Yeah, I mean, I think Fetterman's good at kind of, fighting for progressive ideals, and communicating them in a way, that shows people why they should support them,
Right.
Kind of sort of like Bernie and AOC and this new crop of progressive Democrats that we see coming up. So, I think this is a race, right? And Fetterman's a candidate that I think can kind of energize the base and move the party in the right direction.
100%. And I was also, going to say, if we do the same thing I was doing with Republican candidates, if we actually we look at Malcolm Kenyatta's results and we look at Fetterman's results, you're talking about almost 70%, right, of the Democratic Party electorate went with a progressive message, right? And so that tells you about where the energy is in the Democratic Party too, as well, I think.
Yeah, it's something to be excited about.
100%. So any other kind of takeaways from the primaries? But because I'm also dying to talk about what you got going on over at the Beacon, because you've just been kind of tearing stuff up over there.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously, us being in Bucks County, it's all about finally kind of dislodging and shutting down the Fitzpatrick machine. And I think finally we have a candidate, right? Ashley has,
yep.
Who can do it, right? Who people can be excited about. And I'm also glad that this is kind of coinciding with a change of leadership in the Democratic Party as well.
Yep.
I think that's something that was needed, and we'll wait and see who that is, but I'm confident that, it's going to be someone that's going to move it in a different direction and breathe new life into a party that I think has been kind of stale for the last few years.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, and for people who listen to the show also know that, I was a little at the beginning when Ashley Ehas was running. I was kind of non-committal on where her campaign was going, and in part because of the way it got set up, right? I mean, it seemed like it was going to be a replay of, okay, you have to see, some kind of Democratic Party pick with, consultant pick. They're going to be flying in here and run a campaign. However, if that was their original plan, they got more than they bargained for, because she has been campaigning phenomenally. She was at the kind of the March in Protection of, say, abortion rights in Doylestown on this past Sunday, and she gave a fiery speech, and is kind of basically taking the gloves off and basically saying, Fitzpatrick, time's up. I'm coming for your seat.
No, she is the real deal, right?
Yep.
And like you said, she's been campaigning hard. She's showing up. She's showing solidarity with with candidates from like the township level, and across the board. And she's going to the events, and she's kind of like making clear, like, this is what, I stand for. This is what Bucks County stands for. And Bucks County stands for like a woman's right to choose, right?
Yeah.
Not forced births. Right? We don't, women cannot be second-class citizens or like vessels to kind of keep this. What was the quote from the Supreme Court?
The domestic supply of infants.
Yes, exactly.
Jesus Christ!
Very
I'm laughing.
surprising.
There's nothing to laugh about. It's absolutely horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying.
Sometimes you laugh when you're afraid, right? So it's like, it's scary. Right?
Yes. Nice. Hey, just a little shout out to Amy and Chuck. Thanks for joining the show today, once again. And Bunch, Will Bunchy, basically Chuck said Bunch had a good take this morning on Fetterman, basically saying, look, the anti-elite, right, is kind of what seems to be pushing, which is kind of cool. But there you go. All right, so listen, we gotta kind of plug a few things here for the Beacon. I know we got a hard out today, so kind of let's get into it. But let me just say first, I don't know how you're doing it, Cyril, in such a short period of time. Basically, turning the Beacon into what it promised to be. And again, I know that you'll always kind of give the shout out and kind of recognize the work of the people who've been doing this kind of before you were even kind of part of the Beacon. But to see the kind of coverage and see the kind of articles that you're bringing in, the kind of writers that are coming in, this brings me a tremendous amount of hope, because what you guys are doing over there is pretty tremendous. So take us into what you're seeing of some of the kind of key features that have come out this week, or what you're working on going forward.
Sure. I mean, first, I just want to give like a shout out to like all the contributing writers and editors like Jenny Stevens, Frida, the people that are writing guest opinions for us, like Barbara Simmons, Kelly DeJong telling everyone her abortion story, Kirsten, Steve Sakay, Kadita Kenner at the New Pennsylvania Project writing for us, Molly Parson at Conservation Voters. Like, the thing I wanted to do when I set out with this is make this kind of like a movement media outlet. And I think, thanks to these people and everyone else who, I'm sorry if I forgot to mention you, I think we're making it happen.
I think so.
And so, what I'm continuing to kind of like focus on is just, highlighting what progressives are doing, as well as shining a light on like the right-wing extremism in Bucks County. Whether it's, through the school boards, which, we'll be covering with the new library policy. There's a special meeting that was called for tomorrow night for Central Bucks School District. Talking about voting rights, race issues. We have an op-ed coming out tomorrow from Barbara Simmons about how to be an ally for students in Bucks County. There's also an event in New Hope tomorrow as well about that as well, about how to organize, how to get the tools to kind of like fight back, to make sure like these campaigns to ban books and to kind of erase LGBTQ students, not only from the library, but in a sense from their classrooms if they're taking down LGBTQ flags, how to fight back against that and fight for them. And moving forward, we're just going to continue to kind of be a megaphone for like progressive voices in Bucks County. We're going to continue to cover the school board wars that we're seeing throughout Bucks County, which the whole nation's watching really, and to uncover the right-wing extremism so that people know just what it is that they're facing against.
Yeah, and I think that, as we're kind of going into the summer where all this organizing is happening, the Beacon I know is going to be absolutely part of that. And then moving into the fall, I have to also say that I find it, I'm thinking about this more and more. It's very encouraging that we're going to have some super critical voices that are going to be critical of Brian Fitzpatrick in a media environment which generally treats him with kid gloves.
Yeah, and that's not going to happen with us. And that's something I've highlighted about like the Courier Times and the Intelligencer, who I write a column for, right? But they continuously do treat him with kid gloves and perpetuate this like manufactured myth that his like campaign staff and like office staff has concocted about him being some kind of like moderate, when in fact we know he's not. We know he's talking to Jim Worthington, actually taking legislative advice from Worthington, who admitted that on a Facebook Live just a few nights ago, right? We know he didn't vote for impeachment.
Yep.
We know he didn't speak out against Proud Boys rallying outside of his office, right? So Brian Fitzpatrick is no moderate. He's an extremist.
100%. 100%. Well, Cyril, look, as always, I wish we had hours to kind of dig into some of the details, but man, it is always awesome to have you on the show. You got any final thoughts you want to kind of put out to folks before we kind of head into the end of the show?
Yeah, just keep showing up to these school board meetings and keep organizing and making some noise.
100%. Well, Cyril, man, I appreciate so much coming on today, and I'm so glad we were able to do this kind of live, going out, having some folks join the show. Thanks for Chuck and to Amy for showing up. Don't forget to show up tomorrow right here again on our YouTube channel. We'll be streaming live once again, and that's going to be a special Thursday edition of our Friday Politics Roundup. And Amy Connect will be once again sitting in the chair next to me, theoretically virtually, right, as my co-host, as we were going to be breaking down both the PA primaries and the sheer insanity of the past couple of weeks as we look forward to a summer of organizing. So anyways, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. I want to remind you to head over to the BucksCountyBeacon.com. That's BucksCountyBeacon.com for the latest of everything that Cyril is doing with the Bucks County Beacon. Cyril, have a great one, man, and we'll be seeing you in the streets and in the pages of the Beacon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kevin.
All right, you got it. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. Thank you all for joining us today. And look, we got a lot of work to do this summer. But, if anything, I got some encouragement here. Movements are happening. People are getting together. Let's do this one, everybody. See ya!